for Apple in 2018 and how Tim Cook plays into that?
I mean, I think, going into every year, it's always, this is the year they've got to get into a new category. Now they've got another impetus, not just the fact that they need to grow it as a company, but suddenly they have a bundle of cash on their hands.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've always had a lot of cash. They now have so much more cash. And the announcement of the cash was weird, right? We're going to give some of this money to employees a little bit, but we're not going to do any big buybacks. It suggests they've got a big acquisition coming. Maybe the way they finally say, you know what, we can't figure out how to get into a new category. We're going to buy it.
I mean, it's certainly, I think it is definitely the case that Apple needs, in order to justify itself, to justify its size, it needs another business. It grew itself by taking over whole industries. The iPod created an industry. The iPhone took over the phone industry. I certainly think there are reasons that people speculate that they've looked at the car industry. That's a big industry. I think they need to find an industry that they can transform.
And they can afford to do it, right? Like, in theory, they could buy Tesla, and they could still buy Netflix, and then they could go buy Peloton and throw Magic Leap on top, right? They have enough cash just in the amount of cash that's coming back. Leave aside the crazy amount of cash they already had. They could do all of those things and still have tons of money left over.
They could. Now, obviously, going against any of these big acquisitions, it's not in Apple's DNA. They've never done it. Beats was one of the biggest acquisitions they did, if not the biggest. And, they bought a smallish headphone company and a non-existent music service, and it didn't really go that well.
So I'm curious, what do you think? So one of two things happens this year. Either Apple buys something large to move into a new category, or they simply come out with a new color for their phones and their laptops. Which is more likely?
I'm going to go in the middle. I'm going to go that they don't make
a big deal this year. They don't even come up with a new color?
No, they do something more than that. So, I think there are some more incremental moves that they can make. The one thing that nobody's predicted, but I think would really help Apple as a company, is something in the cloud services space. And they've always struggled at doing services at scale. It's not in their core DNA, even though they've been doing it for more than a decade.
Do you think, if they can't move into a new category, does that mean, A, has Tim Cook failed, and at some point did they move on from Tim Cook?
It's a fascinating question. I mean, I think, this is argued. You can blame a lot of things on Tim Cook. I think he's been in there long enough.
Go. Blame things on Tim Cook.
So I think, Apple has had some quality issues over the last 2 years, both its hardware and its software, that are a characteristic of the company. They've missed some shipping deadlines, and this did happen occasionally under Steve Jobs, but we're still waiting for the HomePod, the smart speaker. A couple of the other products have slipped. I think those are in Tim's wheelhouse, and I think, this what are we next question has been bedeviling Apple for a long time now. I still think cars are an interesting one, and I don't think Apple has given up.
You think Apple wants to be an actual OEM, and you can go get an Apple car as opposed to Apple partnering with Toyota, Honda, or whatever, and basically running the entire inside of the car? You think they want to make the wheels and the axles?
I think Apple and Google's preferred play is to have somebody else do that. They would love to do to the car industry what Android and iOS did to the phone industry, because it's a great business. Basically, phones used to be a good business. Motorola, these companies made money selling hardware. Almost nobody makes money selling phones except Apple and Google and the chip makers. And I think the ideal world, that's what the car starts to resemble. Their ideal world, not Detroit's and not Germany's. I think the car makers are very wary of that. Ford's then CEO, Mark Field, said to me, "We don't want to be the handset industry."
Good on Apple?
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, really
cool.
Good stuff.